Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down podcast. My name is Cummings, joined this week by James Gisante. At the start of the show here, we would briefly like to offer our condolences to the family of superstar Billy Graham. Shortly before this recording on Wednesday night, May 17th, Graham passed away after a long bout with many illnesses. So we would like to extend our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to his friends and family. With that being said, there is a lot of news coming out of the wrestling world this week, so we will awkwardly transition into it as AEW has officially announced their third show on the Turner Broadcasting family of networks, as they will begin to show Saturday Night Collision on TNT starting June 17th. There has been some specific talent announced for the show already, including Miro, Samoa Joe, Thunder Rosa, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Andrade El Idolo, along with some of the champions being shown on promotional material to signify that we all assume that they'll be able to float between both Dynamite and Collision. Tony Khan announced the schedule on Dynamite this past week, saying, like I said, that the show will start from an unannounced location on June 17th, followed by 4 shows in Canada before they, as part of their Canadian tour, before they return stateside to the Prudential Center in New Jersey on July 22nd. That final show is currently a mystery. That first show, is currently a mystery as to where it is, as Tony announced that it will be announced next week on Dynamite. Now, there's maybe a little controversy there. We don't know, but we'll talk about in a bit. First, James, I want to get your thoughts and opinions on the announcement of the show, what this means for AEW as a whole, and what this means for, I guess, their wrestlers, their programming, and if you want to delve into what it means for Warner Brothers Discovery and Turner, you can go there as well.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations to AEW, congratulations to Tony Khan. Congratulations to everybody, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. At a minimum, this means AEW is growing. This means AEW is developing, and this means AEW has the faith and support of Turner Broadcasting. So this is a win no matter how you paint it. I'm very happy for AEW. I'm excited to see how this show is going to be treated, because admittedly, when Rampage started with a lot of hype as well. It started as being touted as an equal to Dynamite, that it was going to matter, it was going to be important, that it was going to have value. And for a long time it did. But it's also hard to maintain a show at 10 o'clock on Friday nights.
Time slot of death.
Time slot of death. And truth be told, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of nervous about this Saturday 8 to 10 time slot. Not a lot of people stay home on a Saturday night watching TV.
Can confirm.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know how often I will be watching this show live. Will I be DVRing it? Absolutely, sure. Will I always watch it live? Doubtful. So does this mean this is the type of show that not a lot of important things will happen, but it'll help progress the story? Maybe, but guess what? That's what Rampage already was. So I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm excited for it. I'm rooting for it. And I'm hoping that a lot of people that don't get a lot of TV time because Dynamite is it, are going to get more TV time. We'll see. As for other aspects of it, this notion, did you talk about a roster split?
I was going to get to that in a bit, but
go for it.
Well, I wanted to give my thoughts on that too, because I agree with you. I think that, and we will get more into the roster split, and all the news surrounding that, but reportedly there is going to be one, just so everybody doesn't have to go to both Dynamite and Collision, because would be, probably a lot of traveling, even if they're in, nearby locations. But I think you're right. Like, I think the hope here is, because they have so much talent on this roster, and even between just Dynamite and Rampage, there's what 3 hours worth of television on for AEW. Like, they can only get so many people onto the show, so it makes it a little more difficult. And not everybody's seeing Rampage, so maybe more of a bigger show, hopefully in Collision, will allow some of the people that we don't always get to see on Dynamite, give them more exposure. I saw something else too. I think the House of Black has been promoted as, they are champions, but a lot of people are speculating that hopefully they're a mainstay on Collision and they're on every week, perhaps even defending the titles under these new house rules matches, which everyone seems to really enjoy the other week on Dynamite. So I think that could be really cool. I think I read that it's now between, you have Rampage is an hour, you have 2 hours of Dynamite, you have 2 hours of Collision, and then you have an hour of All Access. That's what I think. My math is really bad. 7 hours of AEW television on Turner Networks. So, they're doubling down on this. AEW does very strong numbers for them. I saw, Meltzer was, kind of clapping back at somebody on Twitter, as he does, saying that, they like very rarely reach the 1 million-person mark on Dynamite. And he was like, well, if you really think about it, with the loss of televisions in recent years, you only really need to get to like 700,000 and change for it to be the same percentage. And AEW clears that by a large margin every week on Dynamite. So these shows do good ratings for Turner, which is why they're continuing to expand the brand on their networks, and it makes a lot of sense. As for the time slot, yeah, you're right. That's a little rough, but you were going to say.
I would like to add, because I know that there was a lot of speculation and in turn some disappointment that there wasn't an announcement regarding a new deal between AEW and Turner. It's been speculated for weeks now that we were going to hear about a new multi-million, possibly billion-dollar deal, that it would include streaming, it would include more. And that was definitely an instance of the fans starting a rumor and then it exploding and it just snowballing and getting bigger and bigger. There was never an expectation, a genuine expectation, that today there would be a deal announced. That was never in the cards. That was never planned. So for those who are disappointed by that, that is an AEW, not an AEW. That is a fan problem, not an AEW problem.
Yeah, and just to source that, PWI was told by a source from Warner Brothers Discovery that there was never a plan to from either side to announce a new deal between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery. So yeah, I was never really expecting that. I saw some people speculating it, but it wasn't something I was like, oh, there's going to be a new deal. The only thing I was kind of looking for, I guess, out of deals would be, maybe something on the new Max streaming platform, which
that would have been great.
Which I'm still going to call HBO Max, because fuck
you and me both.
But I think I did see AEW All Access is going to be on there though, so they might be opening the door a little bit to maybe getting the backlog of shows onto there, maybe even the pay-per-views, which would be really nice. But we'll see about that. Back to the time slot issue of it all, because you're right, Saturday 8 to 10 is rough, and it's not just because people are going out, but Saturday 8 to 10 is a big time slot for big time sports and other big time events like the Grammys or the Oscars or stuff like that. At least I think they're usually on Saturdays, those award shows. I don't really watch them.
I think they're Sundays.
Oh yeah, maybe they're Sundays. Sometimes they're Saturdays, sometimes they're Sundays. I think it depends on the award show, but they're not really my cup of tea. No offense to anybody who enjoys them, but
it's okay. You've only personally offended me.
But even then, like, you have, your big Saturday night football games are starting around, 7, 8 o'clock. And that's going to be a problem when football comes back around. You usually have big NBA games on at 8, 8:30 on Saturdays. Like, usually you get the ABC games there for the NBA. And I mean, at a certain point in December, the NFL starts taking over the Saturday slot when the college football season ends, and those are ratings monsters. Every NFL game is. So you're going to have a little bit more competition in a primetime slot on a Saturday. UFC fights, when those go on. So Now the pay-per-views don't start to 10, but you got the prelims on ESPN for now. It's there's going to be a lot of competition for viewers. So I wouldn't surprise me if these views were less than Dynamite's. It's a little bit easier on Wednesdays, but
I
I
feel like
think,
that's got to be a foregone conclusion, though. I don't know.
yeah,
If they're expecting Dynamite numbers, I think they're being unrealistic.
I don't think they are. I think you're gonna see maybe in the 600,000 ranges. And I'm completely guessing, but it seems to make sense to me. But if they're top five in the demo every week, I think they would be thrilled, and I think that's
I
good
would
for
be
them.
too.
Yeah. But let's get to this roster split because that seems to be the big thing here. And I do apologize for the strobe light that is sometime going into my house. For those of you who watched our live after Dynamite the other day, I've been having power issues in my house. I'm lucky I'm even here right now. But occasionally my wife.
No. I'm lucky you're here right now, pal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But either way, if that happens, I do apologize. But like I said, let's get to this roster split. So, as I mentioned before, we did have some people who were announced to the show, specifically being Miro, Samoa Joe, Thunder Rosa, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Andrade El Idolo. And it seems to me that they are going to be permanent parts of this roster. Both Miro and Thunder Rosa appeared on Dynamite 2 weeks ago as a bit of a tease for this. But a few of these people have had, reported backstage issues, which I find kind of interesting because then that kind of almost makes the top talent here a little bit of an island of misfit toys where you have Miro, where his backstage issues have been very clouded, but a lot of it seems to be that he just hasn't really liked anything that creative has had for him. Although some people have argued in his favor, saying that creative doesn't have anything for him. But however you want to semantically put that, he hasn't had anything creatively either way. So we've had those issues there. Obviously, Thunder Rosa has had her backstage issues with some of the other talents. Britt Baker being, I was about to say Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, being the most vocal of these people. And, you kind of hear some things from Jamie Hayter and perhaps see some of the other women joining in on shows like All Access. And then Andrade's just seeming desire to either get up out of there or not get out. No one knows what's up with him. He got in that fight, I think it was with Sammy Guevara a while back. So it's very interesting, the talent.
Admittedly, Andrade was hurt. He had that big pectoral surgery.
Yes, he was also hurt. But yeah, that's why I said seeming desire, because he hasn't been there for that reason, but he has also seems to act in a way where he doesn't want to be at AEW any longer. But so between all of those people, you then have the CM Punk situation where, there's been a lot of speculation that the whole reason this show is starting is to get the people who were behind Punk away from the people who were behind the Elite after the whole brawl out situation. And on top of that, no one knows what this roster split's going to look like, whether it's a hard roster split or a soft roster split, whether or not people are floating back and forth between shows or they're just assigned to one and going. There have been conflicting reports the entire day before we taped this. I've said this a couple of times in our pre-tape that Dave Meltzer has said he's heard 25 different things that are going on. So, James, I did throw a lot at you there, but what do you think in terms of what might go on with the roster split, in terms of it being a hard one or a soft one, and the talent that they seem to be accumulating on both shows?
So, to start off, I'm going to make the bold prediction that this roster split isn't as defined as we all think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be as firm as we all think it's going to be. I think it's most likely just going to be used to alleviate travel issues and maybe in instances where guys who don't want to work together are alleviated that stress. Now, I don't think it's going to be this guy's only on Collision, this guy's only on Dynamite, or maybe this week this guy's only on Dynamite, but next week he's only on Collision. I do think we're going to see things be a little more fluid, but that is just speculation at this point. as for the roster, the Andrades, the Miros, the Thunder Rosas, it and the big name, the big fish that we'll get to. It's interesting because most of these names, if not all of them, like you said, disgruntled, have expressed some dissatisfaction with how they've been presented on TV, but they don't all have fan support on them. Thunder Rosa, a lot of people turned on her. Andrade, a lot of people turned on Andrade. Punk is 50-50. The only one who I think might have some genuine, still some shine to him is Miro, because nobody knows what was going on there. The assumption is he wasn't being treated right, so we're not going to be too mad at him. But it's
and everybody fucking loves him.
Miro Day. But that said, it's hard to book a show out the gate where you have so many people who are inherently not super liked by the audience or their coworkers. So it'll be interesting to see how Tony books this moving forward, and if the fans will be there to support it.
Yeah, I mean, like we said before, in in the first segment, where allowing for a roster split does allow for more people to get shine because there's more television time. I think that's how they're really going to lean here. I think people who may be underutilized on Dynamite just because certain storylines are more prominent there are going to become maybe not permanent fixtures, but more prominent players on Collision. Maybe those, the 5 that were announced already are going to be permanent fixtures there, and they'll be leading the charge on Collision. But I think, maybe, like I said earlier, as an example, the House of Black might become of not a permanent fixture, but they'll be a bit of a headliner on Collision, as opposed to them trying to, having to take TV time away from other people. Not even take TV time away from, but
because that's try
to fight their way into getting on TV on Dynamite. So I think you have your people are going to be prominently featured on one show, and maybe occasionally when the story dictates it, they'll show up on the other. And I think that's a smart way to do it. This way, if you need to, you can keep your roster flexible. If somebody, would rather work Saturdays and Wednesdays after, a little while, seeing how things go, you can keep feuds fresh, moving people back and forth without having to have a draft or announce a trade the way you kind of have to do in WWE with their hard roster split, even though they get rid of that every 4 months after they do it anyway. But this way, people, somebody just showing up on Dynamite or showing up on Collision isn't really that big of a deal in terms of having to figure out why they're there or how they got there or why they're breaking a rule, so to speak, So, and I think it'll be fine. But yeah, that is the risk, I guess, you're taking creating the show, though, with your so-called disgruntled employees. Sometimes if fans, and I didn't mention this earlier, but Turner referred to their fans as hardcore fans. So, the hardcore fans know what's going on backstage, and for the most part, or at least they'd like to think that they do, them and their friend Mark, to quote Triple H. So you can see how it might be a little difficult for them to get behind, say, Thunder Rosa or Andrade El Idolo. I think Miro, like you said, I think Miro still has a lot of cachet, and I think he'll be fine. I think he's going to be a really good face of the show. Samoa Joe being there, I guess he's going to probably have to lose the Ring of Honor title, but him being there, he'll be a big part of the show.
There's no saying that people can't work double duty.
True. And I think I read somewhere, and I don't know how true this is, there were, I think, reports that they might tape the Ring of Honor show after Collision, the way they take Rampage after.
Yes, that's the plan. They're going to tape. Supposedly, the plan is Ring of Honor will be taped on Saturdays and then aired the following Thursday.
Yeah, so you can still have Joe pulling double duty, so to speak, if he's doing both Collision and Ring of Honor. Now, that's a little side note here. Maybe Cole Cabana gets back on Dynamite then. But depending on if who shows up, which we'll get to in a minute. But I think Joe being there is a big deal. He's a big name. People love him, and reports are that he might be there because CM Punk wants to work with him first if he comes back instead of Jericho, according to some other reports. But we'll see. And honestly, I'm high on Powerhouse Hobbs, and I think a lot of people are too. And those are just the announced names.
Powerhouse.
So I think they have a good group of people to work with here. I'm not overly concerned with the talent portion of this. We've always said there's not enough TV time for all of these people, even with Rampage, which usually puts on a decent show. It's just like we always say, time slot of death. And with the now defunct Dark and Dark Elevation, there just wasn't enough time for all of these people and all of these storylines. And hopefully now with two 2-hour shows, and there was a space in the middle there that wasn't a stutter. Hopefully with both of these 2-hour shows now, there'll be enough time for all of these people to get in their stories and get screen time and being able to flesh out their characters. And to quote the Turner executive, was it president of Turner Networks, Jason Solarnis. I want to get his thing there. I'll give you his whole quote. Screw it. Adding Collision to our programming mix on TNT will allow us to satisfy the massive demand we've felt from our hardcore fan base.
Gotta love that support.
I think that sums it up perfectly, though.
Yep.
So,
and we should acknowledge too, Rampage isn't going away. I know you said that. It is still content that they're going to have. Rampage isn't going away. It's just transforming. And I think it's going to take the form of what Dark and Elevation were.
Yeah, I would think so.
And Ring of Honor is also, it might not be AEW, but it's still Tony Khan content. And a lot of the AEW guys show up on a weekly basis.
Tony content.
I'm so mad.
Hey man, last time I did that, you learned what "hey ew" is. So
to this day, my life, it feels like there was a before and after moment in my life, and that was the dividing point.
That is still the funniest thing that has happened on this show.
Oh god.
Oh god. For those of you who don't get the inside joke, James thought that "Hey EW" was "Hey ew" because he had never actually watched the show. And it's the funniest thing that ever happened on this show. So, all right.
There's parentheses. Just
we gotta stop talking about it because I'll lose my shit all over again. And also, we need to get to the elephant in this room that we've been kind of dancing around here, and that is the CM Punk of it all. Now, just coming into this recording, which is Wednesday night, Thursday morning, there has been so much shit with CM Punk today. It's been
so tired.
Insane.
So tired.
Fightful has put out 2 stories recently, and this all kind of started with Punk isn't officially announced for Collision. Now, a lot of people have been speculating he's going to be there, and this is all going to be built around him. And people think that the first show is going to be in Chicago, but again, that hasn't been officially announced yet. But Punk hasn't been on any of the Warner Brothers Discovery promotional materials. And he was initially reportedly on the press release, but then later press releases had removed his name. So everyone's a little concerned now of his status in AEW. And then a report from Fightful Select came out that there was a meeting with Punk and Chris Jericho, where the possibility of Ace Steel, yes, that Ace Steel with the teeth and the biting, the possibility that he could be rehired by AEW to work with Punk. And reportedly, Jericho brought this up as a show of good faith in terms of trying to work together with Punk and get this done. But the caveat was that Ace Steel would not be allowed to attend any AEW television. According to Fightful, Punk was, quote, not in agreement with it, unquote. So according to them, plans haven't changed for Punk. But again, this has all led to a bunch of speculation that things aren't copacetic and he might not show up. Now, James, obviously, I think CM Punk being the headliner for the show was kind of the point. I mean, we all kind of think the point of the show was that to get Punk away from the Elite and then get Punk's guys away from the Elite and anybody who might be backing him over the Elite after Brawl Out, just maybe separate everybody and just calm things down. That appears to have dialed back recently, but in terms of both, the divisions in the locker room and the divisions between Punk and the Elite, but it seems difficult to me to have Collision start without your headliner, or at least who was supposed to be your headliner, to draw in the casual audience in CM Punk. Because despite what you may think of him, he is one of, if not the biggest draw in wrestling.
It's undeniable how big a draw he is. Although I think it is fair to say his stock has dropped a little bit over the last few months. All that said, you got to remember, again, going back to Rampage, they sold out. Was it the first or second Rampage?
Oh God, I want to say it was the second, because I feel like we didn't cover the first one.
Yeah. They sold out Rampage on the idea that maybe Punk was showing up.
Yeah, and I think that was Allstate Arena. So
yes,
big, not smaller. It wasn't not United Center, but still a good,
lots of fans in that building.
Yep.
And they did that on the rumor that he was coming. Next week, Tony Khan is making another big announcement. He's announcing where the first Collision is going to be. And we're all pretty much under the assumption Collision is going to be in Chicago.
Allegedly. Now, I saw a rumor that it might even be the United Center, which is where the Bulls and the I don't know if the Blackhawks play. No, the Blackhawks play there. That's a huge arena compared to like Allstate and stuff like that.
So I think with the announcement of Chicago, we're building towards that Rampage moment again. That we don't need to say Punk is coming. He just will be. And supposedly that was one of the big things for Punk too. He doesn't want his return announced.
Right.
So
that was part of the speculation of why he might have been taken off the promotional material, because he wants it to be a surprise, or a very heavy-handed surprise, but a surprise nonetheless.
So yeah, I really want to believe that Punk and the Elite are all big enough that they could just move past this. I want to believe that Punk and the Elite are adults and mature and healthy enough to say, look, mistakes were made, bad things happened that night, but let's all make a lot of money and let's all move past this. Let's see if that happens. I think we didn't get to talk about this yet, but the Elite did Kenny cut a promo after Dynamite tonight, or a couple nights ago.
Last night.
Watched it. Last night. And he dropped a lot of buzzwords, stuff that Punk has said, stuff that has been described about Punk. And bitter rivals, sitting down at a table, hashing things out. These were all very familiar words if you were paying attention, all very familiar phrases if you were paying attention. So at least on Kenny's terms, it seems that maybe it would be possible to work with Punk. Why else would that promo have gotten greenlit if not there was something in the pipeline? I don't know. At the end of the day, this is a business. At the end of the day, these are performers, these are people, and I hope that everybody's comfortable and everybody can do what's best for themselves and for this company.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, there's a lot of money in an Elite versus CM Punk feud. If you get FTR involved in there as well, as they've been very vocally supportive of him, you have your 3-on-3 right there, depending on, spoiler alert for Dynamite last night, what happens with Hangman in terms of that feud. But it's just, he's just driving me nuts. And look, if the entire point was to keep them all apart and to, satisfy him and make things easier for him and them and everybody, and then he's not going to show up, like, what the hell, dude? And look, I still think he's probably going to come back. I don't see why he wouldn't. I'm assuming he's healthy by now, or at least healthy enough to go out and cut some promos and then eventually come back to the ring. But it's just so weird. And
He's coming back. He's coming
yeah,
back. Anything we're hearing at this point is drama to build suspense, drama to build tension.
well, TNT does no drama. So that is twice I've gotten James put his head in his hands.
I am dead inside.
The other thing about Punk, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it was such fucking nonsense, but he is going after Alvarez something fierce tonight.
My favorite thing about
ridiculous.
this stuff, my favorite thing about him going over after Alvarez and Meltzer as much as he does, Alvarez really didn't talk that much shit about Punk in the beginning. I think this is something that has grown because they have gone back and forth at this point. Man, everybody, let's just be cool, okay? Let's just be cool.
Well, I saw somebody to try to provide context of, like, apparently this stems back to when Alvarez, like, either had a shoot or worked crush on Maria Kanellis, and then Punk started dating her, and then Alvarez started trashing him in his articles or something.
Jesus.
And like, which is ridiculous. But the weird thing is, it seems like Punk is trashing Alvarez for the news that came out concerning all of this Collision stuff. And it wasn't even Alvarez that put it out.
Yep.
And he's like tweeting all this crazy stuff about him or tweeting, actually. No, he's not. He's posting all this crazy stuff about him on his Instagram stories. And I guess people are stalking them now because they're getting them with like 47 seconds into posting it. And he's making jokes about Larry getting hired by AEW and then getting fired by AEW, and that Alvarez is reporting. Like, he's off the rails on this right now. And it's just another one of those things where it's like, we kind of said this about Dax for a while too, with the dude, just shut the fuck up. You're messing up your money. Like, at a certain point, they're gonna get fed up with the bullshit.
Who would have thought that these grown men who perform on TV in tights in what is basically a soap opera would have egos and not really be able to avoid drama?
This is beyond drama. It's directed. He's directly attacking Alvarez, obviously. Well, not physically, but it's just, I don't understand, because like I said, you're in a weird spot here where they're going to be fed up with your bullshit at some point. And after you pulled one of the biggest, I don't even know what to call it, disasters, I guess, backstage wrestling has seen in a long time, we're, short of somebody dying, like, you're lucky that AEW is still willing to work with you.
I mean,
and you're going to just keep, poking and prodding and seeing, testing the fence, Velociraptor style to see where the weak points are. At a certain point, they're gonna, cut ties with you if you keep testing them. And I don't understand why you're risking it at this point, is my point. Because then, like I said, you're fucking up your money.
The reality is he keeps getting away with it. He knows his value and he's pushing that value, even if it's unintentionally. It's like you said, Punk is one of the biggest, most marketable stars in wrestling today. So he's a genuine draw who brings tickets in and brings viewers in. He knows that, and more importantly, he knows that AEW knows that. Unless that changes, unless he does something completely, wow, we cannot come back from this, he's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah. And you know what? This goes back to what I said after Brawl Out. It goes back to Tony Khan. And if he isn't going to, if he's not going to put his foot down, and be like, yo, you got to stop with this bullshit. And I know he's not that type of guy, obviously, but if he's not going to, be a locker room leader, even though he's not in there, it's his fucking company. He's got to lay at least some ground rules for them. And if he's not going to do that, then people are just going to continue to walk all over him, especially, these big talents, these big stars. They're going to walk all over him, and he's going to end up with another brawl out. Or hopefully not. We don't want to see that. That sucks. It sucks for us as fans because we lose some of our favorite wrestlers. We lose the good storylines. Tony loses money. And it's like, we don't want to see that. But if you don't keep some modicum of control, then things go off the rails.
Good work.
Thank you. Read your thesauruses, kids. Not to be confused with luchasauruses. And on that terrible joke, unless you have anything that I missed that you would like to talk about in terms of Collision, James?
I'm looking forward to the show. I'm looking forward to when they come to Newark. They already put out the pre-sale code, so you and I should get on that.
I'm in. Assuming I don't have a Met game. I do have to check.
That's fair.
I'm gonna have to look. I think I have one because my July is booked solid. Because I was invited to go to AEW in Georgia.
Okay, cool.
Roundabouts Savannah, because I think they're going to be down there, and I can't go. My July is booked solid. So
well, if you're free, let's make it happen, Captain.
Yeah,
yeah. Good luck to AEW. Good luck to the Elite. Good luck to Tony Khan and everybody else backstage and in front. And let's see what Punk does.
Yeah, I think we can all agree. We do want the show to succeed. It's good for the wrestlers. It's good for wrestling. As we always say, the rising tide lifts all boats. And
let's not let that narrative get too far. The WWE supporters of the world are convinced right now that AEW is only successful because of WWE's current success.
Well, I could look at it the other way, but because I could say AEW is pushing WWE to do better. Look, it's a new golden age of wrestling, in my opinion. We haven't had wrestling this good since, I want to say the 90s, but at least the early 2000s, maybe Ruthless Aggression era and the SmackDown 6 and stuff like that. But it's not nearly as popular, but I think the wrestling is better. I think the storytelling is better. And it's good. And, the competition helps. So I think we can all agree we want the show to succeed because it gives wrestlers more time on air and it helps them be more successful. And we hopefully get more good stories out of it. And I think no matter what fan or side you're on, I think we can all agree with that. All right. So on that note, I would like to thank everybody for watching the Mark It Down podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. We have new episodes pretty much every Thursday. Sometimes things go a little awry and we're unable to put one out, but we do our best to get one out every week. We are also live after Dynamite on Wednesdays. You can catch Danny go over Raw on Raw Fast Forwards on Mondays. James has Gym Pact of Honor. I got it right this time. I got it wrong on the live earlier. But he has Gym Pact of Honor on Thursdays where he reviews both Impact and Ring of Honor because he's too loyal to both to pick one. So he just has to do both.
And I'm stupid.
Yep. And we are live after most pay-per-views, especially the AEW ones. And with Double or Nothing coming up in a couple of weeks, be sure to subscribe to catch us reviewing that once it ends Memorial Day weekend. Also, be sure to check us out on our social media stuff, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Links all in the description below. Danny, as I say every week, does a great job on the Instagram with the memes. And we're starting to pick the Twitter back up a bit more. I will be live tweeting, or at least attempt to be live tweeting Double or Nothing. And Chad's been on there as well, interacting with you guys a lot. So be sure to check us out over there as well. So that wraps things up, like I said. So for James Gisante, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you so much for watching us here at the Mark It Down podcast. Have a good one, everyone.